In this video, we will now delve into the world of microorganisms and try and understand the different types of microorganisms. Generally, microorganisms are classified as bacteria, fungus, virus, algae, protozoa. But let me tell you that this is a very general classification system. If you delve deeper, you will see that there are several subtypes, subclassification systems, subdivisions which are present under each of these. Bacteria has a completely different in-depth classification system further. But that's not what we are interested in right now. We just want to understand that what the general classification scheme for microorganism is going to be like. So we will look at each one of them and try and understand how they are different from each other. Let us first begin with very popular kind of microorganism, which is bacteria. Bacteria is literally found everywhere, right from the air that you're breathing right now, to the table on which you have placed your hand, your own skin, even inside your body. They are present literally everywhere. And that's the reason why we refer to them as ubiquitous. The question normally that people ask is, are all bacteria harmful? The answer to that is no. There are some bacteria which are harmful, some are harmless, while there are several which are beneficial commercially. We will be looking at this aspect of microorganisms in another video. So let's keep it for that. Bacteria basically are prokaryotic and they are unicellular, single man army. But what is interesting about bacteria is that these single cells can come together and live as a community, wherein then they show magical powers. They get all those abilities which probably they don't possess or don't exhibit when they are existing as single cells. After all, unity is strength, right? We will speak about this kind of a community system of bacteria very shortly. Bacteria can be autotrophs. Some of them can synthesize their own food, while most of them are dependent on whatever chemicals and organisms are around them. If you look at the further classification system of bacteria, you will see that some classification systems also happen on the basis of the morphology, on the shape that these bacteria have. So if they are spherical, like you can see at the left hand side, they are called coccus. If they are rod shaped, you call them as bacillus. Comma shaped, you call them as vibrio. If they are spherical and slightly elongated, then you call it as cocobacillus. If they are spiral shaped, you can also refer to them as spirillum. This is a very basic classification. There are much more details out there about how bacteria can be classified on the basis of other characteristics, which we are not getting into right now. Let's quickly switch to the next type, fungi. Fungi are eukaryotic, and they can either exist as unicellular or multicellular forms. So when we talk about fungus, I'm sure that the first thing that should come to your mind is mushrooms. I don't know how many of you did not know this, but mushrooms are indeed fungus. Mushrooms are visible to your naked eye, but there are several fungi out there which are not visible to the naked eye. They are very tiny. Some of them are filamentous. They have filaments, like you can see in the image on your left hand side. They are called filamentous fungi, while some are just like bacteria was. They are cellular structures, unicellular, like yeast, which you make use of in baking purposes. So there are multiple types of fungi, and again a very complicated classification system is out there, but we have to just understand the basics of fungus. Let us move ahead to the next, which is algae. I'm sure that you all know that algae is photosynthetic. They can synthesize their own food, so they are autotrophs. But algae can be of two types, microalgae and macroalgae. Microalgae is something that is not visible to the naked eye. So you may have to use a microscope to visualize them because they are very tiny. So you can see on the top right hand side, this is a microscopic algae. And you would have also seen algae growing on walls, on rocks. Those are basically macroscopic algae. I'm sure that you have seen several water bodies which look green in color. Let me tell you, this is basically because of algae. It's a potent environmental issue and we call this as algal blooming. You can see the image on left hand side base where you can see that the water body looks completely green. Algae can also be unicellular or multicellular. Again, there is a classification system to further classify algae, but we are just good with the basic characteristic features of it. Let's move to protozoa. Protozoa are eukaryotic. They could be autotrophs or heterotrophs, and the simplest example that could come to your mind is amoeba. Amoeba, that irregularly ghostly structure which you see on the left hand side base, is a protozoa. There are several other protozoa out there. Some of them are harmful to humans, some of them are not harmful, and they are microscopic. You can see on the screen some of the microscopic images. All of these are protozoans. Malaria is an infection which is indeed caused by a protozoa. Let's move ahead to the last and the most interesting class, which is viruses. I don't have to tell you more about viruses because we have just gone through a viral pandemic. Viruses are different from other microorganisms because they are acellular. They don't have a cell-like structure. Most importantly, they are threshold of life, which means that they are between living and non-living. Why do we say that? This is because viruses are actively multiplying only when they are inside their host. Like coronavirus, it would multiply when it is inside its host, like a human being. But when it is outside its host, it doesn't multiply. It's not dead, it's just that it's not active. And that's the reason why viruses are normally called as threshold of life. They are between living and non-living. When we look at books and images on internet, viruses are shown as very beautiful colored structures, like what you can see on your left-hand side base. There are plant viruses which infect plants. There are animal viruses which infect animals. There are also viruses which can infect bacteria, fungi, and algae as well. And the structures look so colorful, so beautiful. But viruses are so tiny that you surely need an electron microscope to visualize their structure. What you see on your right-hand side is one such image of coronavirus, the novel coronavirus strain, which is observed under an electron microscope. You can see that it's not, a glorified image like we normally see in newspapers or on websites or on our textbooks. This is how a virus looks like under an electron microscope. So you can imagine that how tiny these viruses indeed are. So in this video, we have gone through different classes of microorganisms. We spoke of bacteria, we spoke of fungi, algae, protozoa, and viruses. In our next video, we will try and understand more about these microorganisms in terms of how beneficial, how harmful they are to human beings. Stay tuned.